News First, Newsline Prime with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Prime. Live, as always, from the News First studios in Dorset Street in Colombo. And this evening my guest this wonderful day is the former chairman of the BOI, Mr. Upul Jayasuriya. Good evening to you, Mr. Jayasuriya.
Good evening, Faraz.
And thank you very much for being on the program. You arrive at sort of at the right time, sort of thing. We hear that there have been changes at the BOI, or changes are afoot. Now then, what I want, if we can be sort of objective about this, how does one measure the success of the BOI?
The measurement to be gauged, there are many ways of doing that. But before I get to the point, the question that you asked me, I must also clarify one thing, that is, this interview was fixed prior to yesterday.
Indeed.
Well before yesterday.
That's right.
So this was not time for any kind of a change that was taking place anywhere.
Perhaps a happy coincidence.
It's a coincidence, quite a coincidence.
Indeed.
Yes. So coming back to the question that you asked me,
yes.
Well, the amount of investments that one has made, the foreigners have made in Sri Lanka is one of the main criteria to measure that. But more than that, the number of the investments, the amount of investments that have been deprived from Sri Lanka due to the lethargy or non-effective approach, or that has to be measured.
Right.
Then in the meantime, there are so large number of industries that have come and signed and sealed the agreements under Section 17, and there are many agreements that have been signed. Mm-hmm. There are over 1,700 companies that are registered with the BOI, and during the time when I was there more than a year ago, for a month we were terminating something like 15 to 20 agreements a month.
Why was that?
For non-performance.
Okay.
So at that time also we had this Harvard Business School making inroads, and then World Bank team and all that. They were making some contribution also, but I was always suggesting that we should start from these failed industries, where it has gone wrong, or for whose fault was it, so that we could take corrective measures. So that is something that has to be done, particularly in gauging how efficient the BOI is. It should be the success and the failure both will be in the officers of the BOI. But that again, when you say officers of the BOI, they must be given the freedom to act. If you don't give the freedom and then tie their hands and then ask them to run a race, or tie their legs and ask them to run a race, they can't do that.
At your time at the BOI, I mean, you came in when the government changed and so on. So did you find it easy to attract FDI at the beginning of the change of this new government, or did you have to spend a lot of time convincing investors that now was the time?
As usual, every now and then we have been having investment promotion seminars here and there.
Right.
But I was not too keen in any one of these investment seminars.
Right.
Because there were a large number of people who are coming into this country for investments.
So sort of doorstepping you.
Doorstepping.
Right.
So we kick them away, and then you go around the world with a begging bowl and asking them to come.
Right.
You say you go to Germany, and how many investors can you send your message to? Maximum you can address about 10, 15, 20 investors. They may not be most interested in coming to Sri Lanka. They may be the people that the ambassador would have gone around and somehow convinced and then pleaded with them, because some officials are coming from Sri Lanka, and then plead with them to come for that seminar. That's about it all. Now these are not people who are interested in coming and then investing in Sri Lanka.
How does one create that natural interest in that case?
I think the interest should be created with the people who are coming here. And then create a situation, legal and otherwise, the factual, where people are treated with dignity, where people where when you come to BOI, the answer should not be in the negative.
Should always be yes.
It should always be yes, because there is a saying to say that the customer is always right. So the investor is always right. Now in a country like Singapore, they send plane tickets for investors to come there, rather than they are going overseas and get them to come and see what Singapore has to offer them. So
Oh, so they pay for you?
They pay for you to come and then do that.
Right.
And we have delegations and delegations and delegations coming to Sri Lanka. These are people who have heard about Sri Lanka, who are so interested in coming and investing in Sri Lanka. So these are the people we have to take their the connections, the contact numbers, then we have to move on with them.
How difficult was it, did you try for even, to get big investors where they would employ, instead of hundreds, but thousands?
Well,
maybe like a car company or I don't know, something like that.
Car company is very interesting. Now when you say car company, I must say that no country in the world has started manufacturing a car in any country. All that has happened, including India, was the assembly. First thing on this production is the assembly. This is what Mr. Upul, which was the first chairman of the BOI, did in 1970 or even before 1970. Around 1970. He started assembling the Fiat car and also the Mazda, UMC Mazda. And they were quite success stories. And
he was years ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Oh yes. And at that time, India was not assembling a car, but we were.
Right.
So what happened? At that time, the media, the politicians, everyone got together and then ruined him and said that Upul is a crook. He is trying to do hoodwink the customs duty and all that. He had a separate plant for he had jigs and all that for this assembly line. So in this process, the first year would be total assembly, nothing from Sri Lanka. Then the second year, maybe third year, would be you will have 5% of stuff coming in, you do the backward integration, coming in from Sri Lanka. Second year maybe 10%, like this little by little go on. Sometimes you go on to about maximum, maybe about 50-60%. But still, even in India, a Mercedes has been assembled, not manufactured, you can't say manufactured, because the engine is coming from Germany.
Right.
If the engine is not coming from Germany, nobody will buy a car that is manufactured in India. Same with Indonesia and Malaysia. But we don't do that, because before, when a project is in this kind of embryo stage, we will kill the project. Or we ask them, no, none of these people, when they come to Sri Lanka, they won't come with a bag full of money. They won't come with a bag full of money. They will bring the suppliers of different items together and then get them to give credit and then send on credit line, send the parts and then put them together and then sell it. Once the finished product is completed, they sell it and then recover the funds and then distribute among the suppliers. That's how it happens. So if we want Warren Buffett to come here or maybe Bill Gates to come here, it has never happened in the past.
Well, that's we need to remind our listeners, our viewers, that you can send your questions in 0772 300 305, as it says on the ticket at the bottom of the screen. 0772 300 305. Please don't ring it. Send us an SMS. Now then, Sri Lanka is experiencing a rather torrid time, the depreciation of the rupee and so on. And many are the views that we need more dollars. We need to export, or at some point we need to be able to attract that foreign direct investment, real ones, not ones who come here and start going around trying to raise the money here. What is wrong with us? Why is it that we seem to be having such difficulty?
Firstly, the officials.
Right.
The officials in different departments, let's say maybe the customs department, maybe the forest department, maybe the environmental authority, maybe the electricity board, these institutions are not ready to meet with these investors and then facilitate them. Though the BOI is said to be a one-stop shop, it has never been so. Now, the original GCC law, Act number 4, 1978, that was passed by President Jayawardena on the 7th of March 1978, after he came to power, 8 months after he came to power, rather 7 months, has looked into all that, and it was a very powerful law. It even had provisions where even the labor laws will not be applicable in the zones, but that was never enforced. Customs law, the immigration law, the exchange control law, income tax law, all that was facilitated by the BOI. So, for instance,
so it really was a one-stop shop.
It was one-stop shop, and those were limited areas.
Yeah.
I won't say that was panacea for everything,
yeah.
but it was still limited areas. But with the passage of time, as it is now, it has become non-effective because there is a new exchange control law. Of course, it has been very much liberalized with regard to the inward and outward remittances.
Yeah.
But the BOI has no say with regard to exchange control. If a local investor has to take money for investment overseas even, he could have done that through the BOI. Now he has to go before some officials in the central bank. You know how things happen in the central bank. It's a mess. It's a total mess. So now take the income tax, Indian revenue law. The Indian revenue law is now outdated. The new law is not in the BOI law.
Right.
So BOI has no power. BOI has been eliminated out of that also. So customs have arrogated themselves the power of doing everything, and then they are a law unto themselves. They won't listen to anyone. Now these are the things that should be addressed and then put them right. When the BOI says something, when the agreement is signed, that should be the be all and end all. I can give you one example.
Yeah.
One of the Japanese investments, they were making, they were planting Kotalahimutu and extracting cutting it and then harvesting it, extracting and then getting the powder out of it, the spirit of it, and then exporting it to Japan, and the Japanese company was making the tablets out of it for diabetic patients. Now they have invested 1,000 million rupees in the factory. They have started planting. The plantation takes about 4-5 years. It has not yet started yielding. Then what they did was, there were, whenever all these development projects take place, like the Moraga Khanda and all these hydro reservoirs, there is so much of felling of trees. So what the forest department has been doing is, then whenever they cut some valuable trees, they produce them in court. So the courts put it on auction. Now these people have bought it from the auction and then used it in their process to the laboratory, and then made the powder, and then they were trying to send about 300 kilos to Japan. Now this was stopped. They went to court and it was still stopped. I was so furious about it. I told in the best possible way to the customs department. They never could understand it. Now what is the message that he will give it to other people in Japan, whoever would be wanting to invest in Sri Lanka? They would be asking for their peers. They will be asking their other fellow investors who have come and invested in Sri Lanka. Do you think that they will ever make a recommendation to anyone to come and invest in Sri Lanka?
And what about stability of policy? How important is that?
Policy is being changed every now and then.
Yeah.
Tax laws are being changed. The attitudes are being changed. And the biggest problem that we had was soon after 2015, there was this draft law that came in, which is called the Agency for Development. I don't gather much the objective of this agency.
Well, why an agency for development? I mean, it's still proposed, isn't it? I don't see that it has been legalized in any way.
Sadly, now this has been in the pipeline for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah.
As a result of which we have overlooked whatever the changes that we had to bring into the BOI law, which is the GCC law, that has been there in operation for the last 40 years. Obviously, any law needs to be revamped.
Yeah.
Without which it can't
be a bit of fine-tuning.
It should be fine-tuned, because now with the experience that we have gathered, when we brought in that law, we were the first in the entire region.
Right.
Not India, not China, not Malaysia, not
So
Indonesia.
we were trailblazers.
We were trailblazers. So what happened? But then President Jayawardena took that bold step.
Yeah.
I don't think if that law was brought in today, with the kind of madness that takes place with the party politics, we would never have been able to take it through and then make it law.
Indeed.
But it became law. So we should make use of that. So whatever the necessary changes that are to be done has to be brought into the GCC law, without which this was definitely a mistake. I don't know whoever advised, and I can tell you for sure that the BOI was not sought for its advice, and this is still in the pipeline, as a result of which we are totally ignored whatever has to be done in the BOI law.
But why have this agency for development and the BOI? It looks like on the one side you have the BOI being appointed by one set. I think the president appoints the head of the BOI. And then you have somebody else appointing somebody else as the Agency for Development. I know an investor sent a message to me about a week ago complaining about this very same thing. And it seems to be not in the best interest of the country to have two sets of people. And one I think the land rule is different if you come under the Agency for Development.
It is in the draft Agency for Development law that the land alienation law and the other land laws will not apply for those registered under the Agency for Development. Right? For any investment that would come in, then the agreement had to be signed with the Agency for Development. And the BOI's power to sign agreement under Section 17, we don't sign agreements under Section 16. But anyway, it must be a mistake. They have put Section 16. Probably they meant Section 17.
Yeah.
The more powers can be given to the investors only if you sign an agreement under Section 17.
Yeah.
But that again has now derogated with regard to these changes of law that have now taken place. So anyway, according to the proposed changes, the Agency for Development can give directives to the BOI.
Right.
Why should another institution be even giving directives to the BOI? Let the BOI directorate handle that. If the BOI directorate is not doing what they should be doing, fire them and then bring those directors into this board.
But this is an amazing piece of policy for a government that's committed to having an open system, a level playing field for all. This can hardly be described as a level playing field.
How can it be a level playing field? You are going to create unequals among the equals. Now all the investors are registered under the BOI law, Section 70.
Yeah.
Now new set of people will sign agreements with, and for all those people who have already signed the agreements with the BOI, the land laws, the alienation laws, all that will apply.
Yeah.
Right? The foreigners holding property and all that. There are embargoes that have been imposed under the present law. But under the Agency for Development, there are no such laws. Mm-hmm. So then, how can that be applicable only to one set of people? If at all, it should be applied across the board.
Yeah.
You can't create unequals among the equals, no?
Right.
So that is discrimination. These are not, these changes, proposed changes will not take the right message to the people.
And how do you fix it?
You have to fix it within the problem. You have to talk with the people. You have to find out where it has gone wrong.
Right.
First thing is that. What are the stacks, the legal stacks that we have? Now, if you are to talk about the investment criteria,
yeah,
in Sri Lanka, we are now at 111th position,
right,
in the entire world.
Right.
In that, most of the criteria are judged on with regard to firstly starting a business. We are 77th position. Dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering property, getting credit, protecting minority investors, paying taxes. Paying taxes, we are 158th out of 185 countries.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. I don't know why that should be so. Then trading across borders, 86th. Enforcing contracts, we are 165 out of 185 countries. So we are 20th from the bottom.
Right.
Very bad. Now these are areas that we can improve. Resolving insolvency. Now we have to look at these areas and then bring in laws to addressing these issues, so that we can, these are doing business, we can take ourselves high in the ladder, so that we will be more attractive to the people when they look at, before they come to countries like Sri Lanka. These are the indexes that they will be referring. Embassies, foreign countries, foreign trade missions, these trade delegations, whenever they come to a country, they know, I mean, all these things are available at the press of a button today. I mean, while talking, they will press the phone and then find out where you stand. So, one can't think or expect that these things to be hidden away from the investors. They are very intelligent. So, we have to address these issues and then correct them.
So, our regional sort of neighbors, if you like Vietnam and so on, they seem to be attracting all they can. Well, is it a good idea to compare or not?
Ourselves with Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's a pathetic situation that we are now compelled to compare ourselves with Vietnam.
Yeah.
Because Vietnam was nowhere when we started off in 1978.
Right.
Right. Singapore and Singapore only. All the countries in the region were enviously were looking at us, Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Then unfortunately the war broke out and then we were held back.
Yeah.
But then the problem was, you asked me this questions a little earlier also.
Yeah.
What are the big investments that could have been brought to this country?
Indeed.
Now, in the power sector, now there have been little bit of silence with regard to this LNG power plants.
That's right.
In the last 6 months, it was mostly discussed in the public domain that CEB was going to set up 2 power plants on LNG, and they were going to do the procurement.
Yeah.
Right? And the procurement process was challenged and so on.
Yeah.
Now, I have always been asking the question, even at the time when I was at the BOI, why is the government trying to get involved in procurement processes and also getting involved in investments? Which is the government investment that is doing well, starting from Sri Lankan airline. Government can't manage businesses, but there are people in the pipeline. There were at least 5 companies. I had the list some time back. There are 5 companies waiting in the pipeline, waiting to come and invest. One company about nearly 2,000 million, another company 1,500 million. The totality of it was in the region of about nearly 4 to 5 billion. Dollars, right? Without giving them the opportunity. If you give them the opportunity, what we should be discussing with them is only the price of power, the cost of power to the consumer in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
At that time, they were willing to give power at something like 7 to 8 cents, US cents,
right,
per unit
yeah.
Of a dollar,
yeah.
cents of a dollar. So still it is cheaper. Our average power cost is about 27, 28 rupees. Much cheaper now. The dollar has gone up, but still it is cheaper.
Indeed.
So they were overlooked, they were chased away,
yeah.
and we are trying to procure it ourselves. This is absurd.
Blaming officials is not acceptable. It's all in leadership. We are beating round the bush. We are looking at symptoms, not the cause. The fish rots from the head. The leadership of Lee Kuan Yew took Singapore from third world to first world. In the last few years, look at the success in Vietnam, the very high FDI. Even Apple has 2 factories in Vietnam. Until we have competent and honest leaders who love the country and have the guts to take correct decisions to make Sri Lanka successful, we would be left behind by the rest of the world. Fair comment?
Fair comment. Fair comment. Having said that, I also say this. I'll bring another example to the fore. That's the Kantale sugar project.
Yeah.
$100 million investment.
Yeah.
The investment agreement was signed, the BOI agreement was signed in August or July 2015.
Yeah.
The investment agreement with the government, the shareholders agreement, was signed in 2016, about the same month. Now, the officials were giving a different picture to the politicians, the leaders,
yeah.
and they were taking that as the gospel truth.
Yeah.
Now, the government was given free of charge, without any investment being done. Government was given 51% shares of the company by the investor, right? And in a matter of 30 years, the entire investment was going back to the government. Now, with all that, the machinery, the project name is called Rehabilitation of the Kantale Sugar Project. The dilapidated machinery that is there, they want to sell it for scrap iron. The housing, there are about 500 houses that were being used by the employees. They are not in a condition to be used by the employees now, but they can be renovated and repaired, then brought up to a livable state. They were going to break them and then sell it for bricks. Now, is this a sensible thing to do? Now, this is what this fellow Mahanama Land Secretary was trying to do at that time. I had a press conference and then said this, that he was asking for a bribe even at that time. But even if I stood on my head and they said this, or even the investor said this, nobody would have believed that.
True.
But then finally everyone has seen what really happened. He was asking for a bribe. Now this is where the problem is. When they take decisions, under this Yahapal and here people, the officers are given the freedom to take decisions. But they take decisions not to the benefit of the investor, but to make investment in himself.
Yes. Another statement, I suppose, from a viewer. In Singapore, the Prevention of Corruption Act provides for extraterritorial jurisdiction, so that actions of Singaporeans overseas are treated in the same way as actions committed in Singapore, regardless of whether the corrupt acts had consequences in Singapore itself. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
And that's right.
Not only in Singapore, I think even in Malaysia, it's very strict, very strict. But I think there should be a similar law that should be brought in Sri Lanka also.
And finally, we've got a few minutes to go. Tell us about the railway, this railway project.
The railway project, let me look at it objectively.
Yeah.
I think in the last few days I saw people trying to, officers, I'm not talking the politicians, the officials were trying to point the finger at each other. I think that's not the way how things should be looked at.
Yeah.
It should be looked at very objectively, try to find out where it has gone wrong. Look, a project like that, a high-speed railway, BOI has no officer who can evaluate that.
Yes.
Let me tell you that. From what I know, these people have a congregation of people, the suppliers of different parts of the locomotive. And they were supplying it to some manufacturer in Italy, and then they were assembling it there and then selling it. So they have got together and then they were going to do the same process in Sri Lanka. So it's a viable project.
Right.
But if you look at, ask them to show, okay, show me your money in the account. No, it's not money in the account. They don't have a bag full of money to come and invest in Sri Lanka. The investment is coming through different sources. Those manufacturers, the backward integration which is taking place there.
Right.
So they had to bring the machinery, equipment and the process.
Yeah.
All they asked from the government was 4,000 acres. That was also for the purpose of a test track. Test track. Right? They can't do a test, send a locomotive overseas without having tested in Sri Lanka.
True.
You can't test a locomotive on the tarred road. So obviously it makes sense to have a test track. So they must be encouraged. So this is where the problem is. Now there is the single window investment committee and all that.
Yeah.
They are looking at things very proactively.
Yeah.
But they don't have teeth. They don't have teeth. I know Mr. Pascal Lingam has been trying to push things in the right direction, but the officials who come there, they take the law into their own hand and then mislead people and they go away. It's just a waste of time at meetings, finally.
Is it illegal or against the rules or the procedure for BOI officials to have other businesses?
You can't. You're not supposed to. But if you have, you must divulge it.
You must divulge. Yes. You can't be having a consultancy and then sort of say, well, you know,
you can't.
Listen,
you're not supposed to. It's not correct.
It's just more than the law. It's a matter of ethics as well.
Ethics. It's just business ethics.
It's just business ethics. Well, you know, we're coming towards the end of the program. But
I must tell you one thing about the BOI.
Yes.
That is, BOI has a wealth of talent. Wealth of talent. Even when I was there at that time, I recommended two lady officers of all the people, to take over more responsibility as two deputy director generals in two different areas. That was overlooked, and then a new person was appointed as a director general, but I think he's also no more from today.
How difficult was it, Upul, for you to be the chairman of the BOI?
The problem
in terms of politics and so on.
When there is one chairman, there can't be another director general. I think both these posts should be unified. Right. Because there will be difference of opinion. Then he'll be going beyond certain ministers and then trying to push things in a different way.
Indeed.
And where the chairman will want to do it in the more legalistic way.
Yeah.
And also I must say this, the chairman by law, of the BOI law, is paid a salary. And that salary is to be determined by the president. So the chairman must be there full time. He can't be there spending 2 hours a week.
Right.
He can't be coming only for board meetings. So why are you paid a salary? Because you have to do a job.
You need to, yes, otherwise it should be honorary.
Why it should be honorary. But if you say that, no, I go there, I'm the chairman, but I don't take a salary. But I'm the chairman. You can't say that.
Either.
If you don't take the salary, then if you have no time, then get out.
Right.
Now this must be kept in mind.
Indeed.
So if somebody is not taking the salary, obviously he is not, his conscience says that he can't take a salary because he is not spending time there.
Indeed.
Then he should not be not spending time there.
Well, that's the end of our time, Upul Jayasuriya. Thank you very much for explaining so much about the BOI. And as you say, it was a coincidence that you arrived on the set after the changes proposed last night or ordered last night. Upul Jayasuriya, thank you very much. Do come back on perhaps one of our longer programs like Face the Nation, hosted by Shamira Sudi. And broadcasting live on Monday nights, and maybe that would be a better spot to have a more robust discussion.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Thank you very much, Upul Jayasuriya. And that's the way it was from Newsline Prime. Take care, have a great evening, and God bless.
Thank you and good evening.
News First, Newsline Prime with Faraz Shauketaly.